Real quick, if you're interested, I am on Letterboxd. My account name is Jackson Krieger. Give me a follow. Sofia Coppola's Priscilla might be my favorite movie of the year. It's certainly up there. It's going to be on, when I make a list at the end of the year, it's going to be high up on it for sure. I thought it was brilliant, and I think that this might be a surprise for some people because that's not necessarily what the critics have said. It's been met with, from what I've seen, pretty positive reviews, but not like otherworldly reviews. People haven't been going crazy over this movie like I have been since I saw it a couple of days ago. I do think it's very fascinating. I think that this is one of those movies that a lot of people might not necessarily say you have to see in theaters, because that is kind of this thing, right? I feel like people say you need to see action movies in theaters, but not necessarily dramas. But to me, I love a movie like this in theaters. I think it creates a really unique experience. It can create a really intimate experience sometime when, yes, there's a bunch of other people around you, but, it's a dark room, so really it's just you and the screen, I feel like, and kind of feeling the emotions that we saw Priscilla feel throughout this movie in a way I don't know if I had from a movie before. I don't know if a movie had kind of put me through something like this before, I guess, where I was along for the ride with Priscilla and everything that she was going through, and it really comes from the performance of Kaylee Spaney, I believe is how you say her name. The movie itself, what it is if you're thinking, I saw Elvis, it was fine, I don't need to see another biopic about him, or maybe you didn't see Elvis but are just tired of biopics in general. To me, this is so much more than just a biopic, to the point where if you got rid of the names and had them completely different people, this movie still works. And I think in many ways, I don't even think that added that much, to be honest. The fact that it was Priscilla and Elvis, I guess it added a little bit. The fact that it was real, the fact that Elvis is such a prominent figure just in society. But here's what I loved about this movie, and what I thought was brilliant, was it takes you through Priscilla's emotions. It goes through essentially what it is goes through the abusive relationship that she was put through. And it's, Priscilla herself was involved in the movie. This is her telling of this story. And I just found it to be incredibly fascinating, because a lot of, I think, lesser filmmakers maybe would have struggled in many ways to, I think, get some of the important parts of this movie down, especially the beginning. I think that getting the relationship with Elvis and with Priscilla to work was not easy to do. I mean, that's not an easy thing to write kind of a romance with an adult and a 14-year-old, which is, how old Priscilla was when they first started dating. But for me, as an audience member, when I'm watching this movie, as much as I know in my head I should be sitting here and saying, I mean, you can't, that this is terrible, and it is terrible, there is a part of you that's like, well, if I was in Priscilla's shoes, I probably would be thrilled to have an opportunity to date the most successful musician in the world. Also, she's lonely and doesn't have a lot of friends, and all of a sudden, there's just not just a friend, but the person in the world right now. That's an unbelievable opportunity, and you could see why someone would want to pursue that. And you can also see the dilemma of the parents of, they obviously can see something's suspect and are concerned, and at the same time there is kind of the this is, there's the financial aspect, which the movie doesn't throw in your face, but you think about all this stuff. It asks you a question that your head knows the answer to, but it still asks it to you in a really unique way. Because early on in the movie, Kaylee Spaney plays Priscilla to be such a likable character that you just want her to be happy, essentially, as an audience member. And you can see that at the beginning, her happiness would be dating Elvis, which is played by Jacob Elordi, who I'd never really heard of before this week when I watched this, and I watched Saltburn, and he was great in both of them, fantastic in both of them. But I really thought it was Kaylee Spaney's performance. For one thing, just the height difference between her and Elordi to make kind of the power dynamic visually show I thought was very fascinating. I think that she completely played the young girl really well. She felt like a child to the point where I didn't even know, because I didn't know anything about her before this movie. I didn't know if she was a child or an adult until I assumed she was an adult, just because it's easier to film that way when you don't have to, less things hoops you have to jump through if you cast a younger looking adult. But I didn't know for sure. Like, she did pull off that aspect, and you go along for the ride. You kind of see why she's smitten with Elvis and why she wants to date Elvis and why she stays with Elvis even after he's doing these annoying things and terrible things, really. The fun moments in this movie, which are kind of few and far between, but they're really fun. And it's kind of that, abusive relationship type of thing where since the bad moments are bad, the good moments feel that much better, and you do kind of get that interesting dynamic. Haven't mentioned Sofia Coppola yet, but you knew I was going to. Obviously, this is very much a Sofia Coppola movie, and this is it's the details is what makes this movie work. I mean, to the point where it's legitimately almost a character, just the outfit fits that Priscilla wears throughout this movie. That's like a whole thing. It's just noticing that, and even me, as someone who knows nothing about any of that stuff and isn't interested in any of that stuff, I can still figure out what's going on just from certain outfits, from certain makeup choices. It just, and I thought it was visually breathtaking at times, and it's a really fascinating story. I just found this to be such an interesting thing and such a unique story to tell. These stories don't really get told that often, right? We hear, the Elvis biopic. That's the kind of story that gets told. Look at this guy. Look at how awesome this was. And I'm not even necessarily saying that, like, we shouldn't tell. I think both movies can exist. I think that's fine. But it's just interesting where, like, a comparison I thought of is you think about The Wolf of Wall Street, right? And it's about these guys and the excess and everything they're doing. This is kind of like if they made a movie about Margot Robbie's character in The Wolf of Wall Street. It's just unique, and it's just something that, at the end of the day, when I go to the movie theater, sometimes I'll see movies and be like, yeah, that was a good movie, but like, I've seen it before. I want to see something new. I want to see something interesting. And to me, that's what this movie did. I was along for the ride the whole time. I don't think I need to get into spoilers. I will say a lot of people didn't love the ending of this movie. Not in like it ruined the rest of the movie. Just felt like it fell flat a little bit. And I get those criticisms. I do. I'm not necessarily saying like you can't have those criticisms. To me, I enjoyed the rest of the movie and getting to that so much that while I would agree, it doesn't really have that crescendo at the end. The climax isn't really like this massive thing. I think part of that is, it's a real story, right? You can't completely make stuff up. And I also think that's kind of how these real stories tend to go. There doesn't always end up being this massive climax like there is in real life. That being said, I can still see it not necessarily being the ending maybe some people were hoping for. So I do understand it, why some people maybe didn't love that. I would also say that, again, it's a movie about abusive relationship, and it's very much a sort of character study, can be a bit slower at times. A lot of times it is sort of a vibes movie. So if that's not necessarily your thing, maybe don't check it out. I think at the very least, I think these are great movies to see in theaters. If you're kind of someone who is in the camp of, I'll see the action movie in theaters, don't need to see a drama in theaters, I would recommend whenever it gets on streaming, at the very least, make sure you get this on a watch. If for nothing else, see if these are the kind of movies you're into. If you're a Sofia Coppola fan, you're going to be a fan of this movie. That's how I view it. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.